No, no bus. A Just Bees book club. This is gonna hopefully be a short one, I think. I am going to talk about Richard Stark's novel Backflash. It's a Parker novel. Parker is um, the noir detective. No, sorry, not detective at all. The noir heist man. That I guess Richard Stark is famous for. He's also Donald E. Westlake. I think that might be his real name because Richard Stark, I think, is the pseudonym. Um, Very high level on this one. Uh, Parker is out for another job. I've never read anything else by Stark or Westlake. I don't know have any context for the Parker series or the Grofield books. Much less anything um, this author did as Donald E. Westlake. Um, I just read this one over the course of the last couple of days, and it's solid. But the sort of pitch is there is a local politician in upstate New York who sort of hires Parker to rob a new floating casino. It's in the Hudson. It's set on the Hudson River. So there's a casino that was called the Spirit of Biloxi that is now becoming the Spirit of the Hudson. It's a yacht where people gamble. And Parker is like assembles a team to rob this casino based on the like blueprints and everything that this local politician gives him. Um, it's a lot of moving parts. It's like, is this politician really just an anti-gambling man, or does he have an ulterior motive? Does this professional wrestler that is part of the team uh, care enough to continue helping Parker, or is he actually gonna betray him? Is the woman Noelle, who like was an old um, beau of a dude who got caught and then stopped being into crime, is she down to do the things that she is involved in? A lot of moving pieces. There's like a whole weird subplot about like a reporter who is there from like a local paper who is like undercover, but like not to do a hit piece, to do just a puff piece. He's like undercover to do a puff piece. um like, is that the complication that is going to blow everything up? That kind of mystery novel. um they do the crime and complications happen, and it's all very interesting. I think just from reading it, I will say that I am interested in maybe reading more of this dude's work because he writes in a way that is deeply cinematic, in a way that I don't think I've ever really seen from literature. Like I've read enough books that have turned into movies. I've read enough like you know cinema theory to have some thoughts on this, but um, yeah, they just immediately struck me as written sort of for this, not for the screen, but like in a way that is very adaptable to the screen. And I'm actually gonna see if I can't find a passage really quick that like really gets into it. While I'm looking for it, I think uh, it feels very much like a middle of the series mystery novel, also, or noir novel, where it's like I don't know which of these characters are mainstays and which of them are being sort of planned to be mainstays and which of them are like just the red herrings, but like there's a lot of good sense of people being sort of not fully fleshed out, but having just enough there that you could see like, oh, they must have done this thing like 10 novels ago or 20 novels ago. Or oh, they're being set up to maybe continue doing this specific thing in the next 10 or 20 novels. It's a very specific form of writing that I'm only very barely fluent in, I guess. I'm not fluent in. Very. I'm just gaining a capacity for understanding, I think, based on reading a shit ton of Nancy Drew and Andrea Camilleri's Montalbano series, specifically this year, even. So it's like, this is just a thing I'm new at. Um, okay, let's see. Oh, this has got some weird language in it. Yeah. Maybe I'll just. Yeah, okay. Let's see how I read it. Uh, One rang, and the man who answered sounded fat, middle-aged, wheezy. Cathman, he said. Not Mr. Howell? Parker said. A wheezy chuckle. Not really possible, Cathman said. That's Mr. Parker, isn't it? I don't know anybody named Cathman, Parker said. We're meeting now, in a way, Cathman pointed out. The fact is, Mr. Howell was going to be doing something for me, but he told me he had this other project with you first, and then we could get together and plan our own enterprise. Unfortunately, he didn't survive that earlier obligation. Parker waited. Was he supposed to be responsible for this fellow's plans coming apart? Cathman said, I don't want to sound forward, Mr. Parker, but I believe you share much of the expertise I found so valuable in Mr. Howell. Possibly. If this was an entrapment call, it was the flakiest on record. I expect, Cathman said, you're not particularly looking for work at the moment, since I believe your part of the activity just completed was rather more successful than our friend Howell's. Oh, Parker said. You want me to take Howell's place? If, Cathman said, if you're interested in further work in, well, not the same line, a similar line, if you'd prefer to rest, take time off, of course I'll understand. In that case, if you could recommend someone. This fellow, whoever he was recruiting people was recruiting people for some sort of criminal undertaking over the telephone. Had Howell really taken this clown seriously, or had Howell been interested in something else that Cathman didn't realize? Parker said, I don't make recommendations. But would you care to meet? There are things, you understand, one doesn't say over the phone. Well, he knew that much, though he didn't seem to understand the concept in its entirety. Parker said, a meet for you to tell me what Howell was going to do for you. Just so. You could come here, or if you prefer, I could go to you. I'm not exactly sure where you are. Good, Parker said. Sorry, good. Parker said, Howell gave you this phone number? His wife did. I presume she's his wife. I'll come to you, Parker decided, because Cathman sounded more dangerous than interesting. He had no sense of self-preservation, and he was walking around with knowledge that could hurt other people. If he turned out to have something interesting, Parker might go along, take Howell's place. If not, Parker might switch him off before his broadcasting interfered with anybody serious. Oh, fine, Cathman said. We could do lunch if you. A meet, Parker said. Your territory outside a parking lot, a farmer's market, a city park. Oh, I know, Cathman said. The perfect place. Amtrak comes up the Hudson. Could you take could you take the train from Penn Station in New York? Yes. It's less than 2 hours up. The stop is called Rhinecliff. Wait, I have the schedule here. What would be a good day? Tomorrow. That's wonderful. All right, let me see. Yes, you take the train at 3:50 tomorrow afternoon. You'll get to Rhinecliff at 5:28. I'll come down from Albany. My train gets there at 4:51, so I'll just wait on the platform. You'll find me. I'm heavy set and have about as much hair as your poor friend Howell. And I'll be wearing a gray top coat. Oh, and probably a hat as well. So the baldness doesn't help, does it? I'll find you, Parker said. Um, that went worse than than it did in my imagination. um, but yeah, the dialogue, the scene setting is all written in a way that is very, very, very cinematic. And this is where I want to talk about the thing other than this book. I don't really have a ton to say. It's good. It was engaging. It was fun. But I kind of want to talk, I think, briefly at least about expectations because this is a Just Bees book club. Just only bees here ever. So my coworker B recommended this to me. His not just recommended, he lent this to me actually, so I'm giving it back to him tomorrow. Um, this B, I don't remember exactly what he told me. I know he recommended it to me based on um him reading the first Camilleri book, The Shape of Water, the first Montalbano book. I think Camilleri had had a whole career before writing the Montalbano books, but that's neither here nor there. Um, and I think he recommended it to me sort of based on the sort of vibe of Montalbano, the way that Inspector Montalbano is kind of a no nonsense motherfucker. He is willing to break legs, kind of thing. Um, Parker is absolutely that also, but more noir. Like Parker seems less willing to, or not less willing, seems more willing to just stone kill somebody than like break their legs. Um, but yeah, I know. So that was like the context I was recommended this book in, I think, and lent it. That was a couple of months ago, I think, at this point. So I like kind of sat on it and waited until I was in the mood for a mystery, which is part of why I think I liked it. But I'm like, the thing it had me think about is like the way in which how a book gets recommended to you impacts your um, feelings about the book, which I think is a very, basic ass thing to say. Um, and I guess less about how, like, the specific, like, very clear context of how it's introduced and more the, like, relationship one has with the person giving them the book. Um, like, for instance, I have said the word cinematic probably at least like 4 or 5 times at this point. But like one of the things I know about this coworker is he's very smart about cinema, very engaged with a lot of things. Used to work at a video store for a long time and has good stories. Has a real like broad interest in film. Is like as willing to talk about the new whatever the Hawkeye, I guess, is the new Marvel thing right now, as he is to be like when I was like, oh, I've been sort of slowly piecing together watching Eight and a Half again for the first time in like a decade and change. Um, he's just immediately on top of it, like, oh yeah, Marcello Mastroianni's incredible in that. The ending sequence is the most breathtaking thing in cinema, and I'm like, yes, yes, yes. We can talk about. He recommended me a documentary about. Uh, I've already forgotten the man's name, and I watched this whole documentary, and it was pretty good. The sort of curator of the cinema in Paris that all the Cahiers du Cinema people went to. Um, I'm not talking about what I meant to talk about. My hair is all fucking over the place. Um, that's slightly better. all of that context is to say that I was primed, I think, to read for a certain amount of cinematic quality to this because I know this person who gave it to me is very interested in cinema. I also know he's very interested in mysteries and has like a good broad understanding of them. I don't think he's like I think he's dived deep here and there, but I'm talking out of my ass at this point. Okay, um, yeah, a short one. 15 minutes in. I've read too much of that book. Okay. Um the point I'm trying to make, I think, is that I if I had just sort of picked this book up and started reading it, I might have like turned away from it at some point sort of early on. Um and I'm glad I didn't because I do enjoy it. It filled a particular need for me of like a a good mystery. I'm like even interested in reading more, but I think a lot of that is because of the context I was introduced to it in. And and this is not like some palliative fucking like tell people about books better thing. This is like I guess just me saying a lot of things out loud so I can get to a very fairly simple point, which is it turns out like reproductive labor is very important, right? Like the way that we exist in the world is incredibly informed by the ways that other people exist in the world. And specifically, like the things that people care enough about to talk to us about um, are important, even if, you know, somebody like is just yelling at you about some bullshit that they care about that you don't. Um, that is, there is, there is a thing that that thing does for that person that they are not articulating well if they are, annoying you with it. But I don't know. It's important to me to sort of reground myself in that knowledge. And that's not what's necessarily happening here. But I don't know. Fuck it. I think I'm just going to push this out. I have deleted episodes that were more coherent than this. But I am working holiday retail in the second year of a pandemic, and my brain has been fucked for so long. I mean, like, it's been fucked forever, but like specifically for this point for so long. I've just been doing so bad. I don't know. Backflash is fun. um, also just to like put a cap on that and sort of ignore all the things I just said. There is something like really interesting about what a phrase that I use all the time. There is something very interesting about the way that like Parker sets up the job. I didn't say this, but like, yeah, the actual heist itself is like a pretty small portion of this book. It's like not even. It's I guess. I don't think it's even the climax actually. Like it's the immediate aftermath. I think is the climax, but the setup is also like 100 and change pages long. And there's so much really neat there's so many really neat moments of like one of the ways that Parker gets in touch with a potential participant in the heist is he goes into a biker bar, orders a beer from across the bar, drinks it, and then walks out and stands by his Subaru. And then a couple minutes later somebody else comes out and goes, hey, you Mr. Lynch, because that's the alias he's going by. Um, there's just a lot of that. A lot of like there's a lot of language that is happening that is not, talking. There are, you know, one dude gets off a plane and Parker and Dan, which it's Wycza, which I want to pronounce like Vichcha, but I don't know. They like see this dude get off the plane and they immediately just turn around and start walking away. And like there are there are ways of communicating happening um that are really cool and sort of speak to a culture, I think. Even if that's not the necessary terms that they would use. But yeah. Cool book. A cool book. I might read some more of this. And if I do, I will talk about it if I haven't given this fucking thing up. Because who knows? I am now going to say thank you for not watching. I don't mean, and I don't mean that if you did watch. Genuinely, I mean that. Thank you for those who did not watch. Um, Bye.